GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
From wherever we decide studios, broadcasted live on iTunes, Spreaker, and worldwide, this is the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast with your hosts, the Crimson Cyclone himself, Cyclone Jones, and of course, the producer, Pat G. The G stands for gangsta. And now kick back and get ready for the eargasms.
And welcome to another edition of the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast. As we are brought to you by GearNetwork.com. You can visit GearNetwork.com and click on the links to all of our sponsors and get great deals. And, of course, listening to all the other content that Gear Network provides. Of course, I am Pat G. The G stands for gangster, along with the Furious One, Dan Fury, as we're going to talk everything in the last week of professional wrestling. And, boy, was it a week as it was.
Oh my God, Pat G. I go away to race in Boston for one night, one weekend, just one Veterans Day weekend. And all of a sudden, you've got AEW destroying the universe with quite possibly one of the most beautiful symphonies of brutality that I've ever seen outside of Japan, which we'll talk about later. And then, do you hear that? If a pipe bomb goes off in the woods, does anybody hear it? Nah, because that pipe bomb went off on FS1 last night with the return of the best in the world, the real best in the world. What an amazing week for pro wrestling.
Yes, it has been. And, of course, starting off last week with the build up to War Games, NXT, and Survivor Series, as it seems that everybody's kind of finally aligning their teams and whatnot. And in the NXT universe, we're still not totally sure what's going on with Finn Balor, but it's Balor keeping everybody guessing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, here's one of the weird things is we had an interesting NXT where out of Retribution you had the OC show up, and Finn Balor comes down and does the finger gun back to AJ Styles, who's giving the too sweet. And his character just keeps developing in this weird way where is he out to prove that he's the original NXT breakout star? Is he full-on baddie? Is he there to be kind of a savior for NXT to take them to the next level on USA Network? It's not really clear. And not only that, but you would think that someone who has now been on all three brands would have drawn a hard line in the sand and essentially been the general leading NXT into this Survivor Series war, when quite the contrary, he's just kind of laying back, which leads me to believe that he's either still recovering from some nagging injuries and, tentative, or they've got some huge plans for him and they just don't want to let the cat out of the bag until Survivor Series time, which Survivor Series has now become one of those big events where if something shocking or unexpected happens, it's kind of now happening at Survivor Series because it's really becoming the original, the new road to WrestleMania stop.
Yeah.
Where Royal Rumble once was, and you had a 3-month build, 4-month build, depending if it was in April. Now Survivor Series is seeing some stuff because Sting's return, which led to the match against Triple H at WrestleMania, began there. The unbelievable and unexpected Goldberg 90-second demolishing of Brock Lesnar happened at a Survivor Series. Some major things are starting to take place at Survivor Series. I wouldn't be surprised if for NXT, Finn Balor's true intentions show at Survivor Series.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the fact that you have the triple threat Survivor Series team match where we now know who is Team Raw, we now know who is Team SmackDown, but we don't know who Team NXT is because, of course, right now it's like the tag team champions, Bobby Fish and O'Reilly, are in a triple threat match. Roderick Strong's in a triple threat match. And that pretty much leaves Adam Cole. Because Adam Cole's not defending the NXT championship on Survivor Series. He's not in a triple threat match with the other champions. So that leaves Adam Cole, but that also leaves a lot of possibilities for that NXT Survivor Series team, especially considering all the quote unquote bad blood between everyone.
Yeah, and let's not beat around the bush here. You have such a stacked card, and I mean, today on social media, NXT released a poster that had, all of the quote main talent, if you will, on NXT with the dubbing the main roster, saying that they are the main roster, which is really solidifying NXT stars as being main roster, no longer call up superstars, which is what they have been for the last several years. What I like about this is the jockeying for position from guys who it's put up or shut up time. I mean, you had Dijak on Raw, involved in the beatdown a week or so ago. You now have Walter. Okay, let's not forget, NXT doesn't just mean the Orlando crop. Walter faced Seth Rollins last night on Raw, or the other night on Monday Night Raw. Okay, Walter is having a freaking phenomenal time as champion, and for NXT UK. So could we see Walter versus any number of Raw or SmackDown talent, because he is a representative of NXT? You have all of these potentials, and it's something that we talked about a few episodes back with the unpredictability of this shift from NXT being really the farm team to being the main team, being one of the big three now. To me, keep the fans wondering who is going to be representing NXT. Keep them guessing. Keep them wondering, because if we knew Velveteen Dream was going to go up against, let's say, Seth Rollins, would it be an impactful moment? Would we want it telegraphed to us? Or what if Roman Reigns, the all-powerful Roman Reigns, ended up going against Adam Cole? Okay, we already know about the women's match. We've had the intense stare down between Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler, and the talking smack between the two of them. Do we really need anything else telegraphed to us? I like that air of unpredictability. It's what made the Monday Night War so awesome. You didn't know what you were getting when you tuned in. If I knew what I was getting spoon-fed to me when NXT was mentioned, then I would not enjoy it as much, especially right now with Survivor Series and then what is going to be gearing up to NXT's first WrestleMania, really, as a main roster acquisition.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the big thing is with NXT being in Tampa this year and them being in Tampa Bay, it kind of like puts NXT even on that, because NXT's always been that Florida-based developmental company up until recently that now you're getting main roster spots. And as you said earlier, with Survivor Series becoming that new start to the road to WrestleMania, honestly, I think that's true, because in years past, everybody's known the big four: Royal Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. But Survivor Series has always been that one late in the year where it's like, okay, we need to finish up feuds so we can kind of reset come January. now it's Survivor Series slowly becoming that slow burn to Royal Rumble and then Mania. Because what throws off the road to WrestleMania now is you have the Royal Rumble, but then shortly after the Royal Rumble, you have the Elimination Chamber to AKA fix whatever mistakes have been made that they don't really want anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it like this, and I know it's going to sound a little weird. You know, you say fix things, you know, little tweaks here and there. I mean, Elimination Chamber has changed title matches. You know, like we had a few years ago where Randy Orton won the Royal Rumble and Bray Wyatt won the championship, and that was one of the matches going in. You know, that was kind of, people may have thought that was going to happen. There were some people who were like, no, it's not going to be for the title. And then it totally was for the title, and you're like, well, shit. Okay, so Randy's winning the belt this year? Cool. Awesome. Like me some Randy Orton championship. That's great. You know, I mean, major shockers happen on that route. But now major shockers are happening, you know, at Survivor Series, which to me as a fan is exciting because, you know, we talk about the Big Four. And as nostalgic fans, we reminisce about the days of the raging 80s when it was only four. And the time it took to slow burn stories, and we'll get to slow burning stories later with AEW.
Yeah.
You know, the Macho Man Randy Savage Hulk Hogan feud really was almost a 2-year feud if you look at it in the making.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. If you go back and you watch that whole thing from the time the mega powers were created, which was before WrestleMania 4. They were teaming up before at times. Then you had Savage win the title at 4. You still had the mega powers and everything. And then you had build to WrestleMania 5 the explosion of the mega powers. Yeah, it was literally a 2.5 year build. And
nowadays, as what we saw with The Fiend, you get 2 months. That's it. You know, like The Fiend shows up, destroys Finn Balor, sends him to NXT, takes a month off, fights Seth Rollins, fights him again at Blood Money, and wins the title. And that's it. That's how quickly storylines go in this new world. So for me, as a fan, for the idea of Survivor Series to WrestleMania being the slow burn for certain story angles, go for it. Please, for the love of God, tell intricate stories that involve a lot of background versus just, here's Royal Rumble and here's WrestleMania and here's this little pay-per-view in between where, like you say, we fix the glitches in the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. And not to get off topic real quick, but I have NXT on and they have Lio Rush versus Garza. And Garza's got this like guillotine full Nelson into like a driver, and it looks sick.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to check that out later.
Yeah, it looks sick. But this the thing is, yeah, WWE gets time to like fix the glitches here and there and whatnot. But it's now a time where it's not only the Raw talent and the SmackDown talent, it's the NXT talent. And for everybody that's a wrestling fan that knows the names that are on NXT, I'm going to say there's a lot of people on NXT that people may not know, like, or whatever. But for the people that know your Adam Coles and your Roderick Strongs and your Kyle O'Reillys and your Matt Riddles and Keith Lees and Kojak and all that. For guys that have known those people that have followed their careers on the independents and whatnot, know the talent that these men have and know that they can hang with the big dogs of WWE.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is that there is this perception, at least by certain fans, where, NXT doesn't have, and actually we've talked about this where other wrestling promotions stars have referred to them as minor league. Well, they can't be too minor league if they're going against you head to head on Wednesday nights, but hint, hint, but also, these guys are no longer minor leagues. These guys are on USA on prime time for 2 hours live every week. Okay, I don't consider that minor league. I don't consider that. I consider them to be on par with other stars. In fact, the way I view it is this, and if you'll follow me in this weird thought process, when I go to Walmart, or when I go to Kohl's, or when I go to Target, and I see WWE product on the shelf that has like backpacks and lunchboxes and stuff like that. Just like when I was a kid, if you saw a lunchbox, you had Hulk Hogan, you had Big Boss Man, you had the Legion of Doom, you had their logos, you probably had Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man on there somewhere, $1 Million Man.
Roddy Piper.
Would have some cool shit. Okay, nowadays you see like Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins, and Becky Lynch, and Finn Balor, those guys. NXT has stars where if you were to have a backpack with the images of certain talent, and you were to have the WWE logo and an NXT logo, and I'm not fucking blowing smoke just because I'm on a wrestling podcast, I could see Becky Lynch, Roman Reigns, Finn Balor, Adam Cole, Kofi Kingston,
Shayna Baszler,
and The Fiend.
Yeah.
I could see that on a backpack. And I'm not just saying that. Or Tommaso Ciampa. Or Johnny Gargano. Or any number of Velveteen Dream.
Yeah.
I could see Velveteen Dream in his three-eyed hippie glasses on a backpack. And I'm not saying that just because, I want to make NXT sound bigger than they are. They are that big. It's just going to take a little bit of time, I think, for certain fans to warm up to the fact that, hey, guys, you have 3 brands. You are living in what I refer to as the greatest wrestling time in history because you have all of it at your fingertips.
And you know what? And with NXT being on USA, I'm not saying that NXT wouldn't have got to the USA platform. I fully believe NXT would have got to the USA platform at some point. I honestly think what may have done the USA Network a shot in the wrist, so to speak, of going, oh shit, we need something, is the Fox deal. Is when Fox acquired the rights to SmackDown. I honestly think was like, okay, cool. You want to take SmackDown? All right, fine. And they wrapped up NXT quick as hell.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the things that gets me is that you look at just how quickly after the deal was made. Okay, because there were a lot of factors in this year of professional wrestling renaissance that we've had. Okay, I believe the Fox deal for acquiring SmackDown played an enormous factor in the NXT moving to USA.
Oh, absolutely. And I also think the deal with TNT making the deal with AEW.
That was another factor. That was number 2. I honestly believe that was their reason for going head-to-head on Wednesdays. There's also a couple of unsung heroes in this one. I believe the Ring of Honor New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Supercard at WrestleMania weekend in Madison Square Garden in Vince McMahon's backyard, or actually front yard. They went straight to his front yard. They took a big old dump right in it. I was there. It was a nice dump. It was like, I know that sounds weird, but when you have Muta, Jushin Thunder Liger, and Suzuki in your second match in a battle royal along with King Haku and some of the most impressive young talent in professional wrestling. And when you have Okada winning the title from Jay White, I mean, you know, in the Garden as the main event.
Yeah, and then of course you had the Jay Lethal being the first African American to be in the main event at Madison Square Garden in wrestling history.
Exactly. And then you add on top of that the fact that, you know, New Japan have pulled some phenomenal numbers with Wrestle Kingdom this past year. January. And whether people want to admit it or not, the knowledge of sudden freedom for professional wrestlers to be able to go wherever they want, i.e. Moxley, and walk away from these contracts, it makes pro wrestling desirable. It makes pro wrestling something that people want to see. And I do believe that all of those were contributing factors to the Wednesday night move of NXT up, because instead of looking at these smaller promotions for the future, well, screw it. They're not the future. They're the now. We'll just put them on network TV. You know, I mean, look at the guys that are showing up on Monday Night Raw to essentially rub shoulders with AJ Styles and the Club, or any number of those of Seth Rollins. I mean, you had Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, you know, a phenomenal tag team in their own right, standing on the ring apron against one of the most recognizable sports entertainers on planet Earth a couple weeks ago. I mean, they're doing segments with AJ Styles, who for the last couple years has really, I know that it's cheap marketing, but he was the face that ran the place. I mean, he was on the cover of WWE 2K.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the guy who John Cena had a phenomenal series of matches with. Some might argue the best of John Cena's career, and it happened at the twilight of his career.
Oh, absolutely. And what's funny is with AJ Styles is everybody knows that AJ Styles is on his last contract. He has made it public that he is on his last contract. When this contract is up, he's done. He's hanging it up. He's done. And the thing is with AJ Styles is now in a place where AJ Styles has a name. He's been in the business for a long time, and he now knows that he can easily make somebody else's career. Hence why I think he's in the faction with Gallows and Anderson, and because it's easier on him. He doesn't have to be the focal point or anything, but he also can have 4 or 5-star matches with people and get younger guys over. AKA his matches, while his matches with Humberto Carrillo hasn't really been setting the world on fire, he's trying to bring somebody up and coming young along.
And, you know, AJ Styles doing that, and some of it's, for me, okay, when we have talked about the beauty of AJ Styles and all of the work that he's done and the art that it is to bring young talent up and make them someone that you'd want to see. And I guess this is something that some of the part-timers take shit for, in that AJ Styles could totally be a part-timer on this last contract.
Oh.
AJ Styles could ride out this next 2.5, 3 years and collect what's going to be a considerably well-off paycheck. I mean, the merchandise alone is going to keep him going forever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's already said, like you mentioned, he's done. This is the last contract he's signing. Chances are he's probably going to end up working as an agent or a trainer. God, I wish him either one. And really, much to his credit, this happened once again at the end of his career, where he is in his 40s going to the big show, having matches with guys who, you know, his matches with Shinsuke and Nakamura a couple years ago were true wrestling delights. And they really put the spotlight if it wasn't already there, on New Japan, and made people want to go back and watch those matches, which made New Japan World even more desirable for the same price you would get WWE Network for. So why not throw another $10, towards wrestling? But the one thing that I can say is these NXT kids could learn just as much from AJ Styles being in the ring with him for a brief period of time as they would any of the stuff if they were to keep them on, quote, house shows or small venue shows and not have them on USA.
Yeah.
Like Tommaso Ciampa getting the opportunity to work with AJ Styles. That just sent Ciampa into a different level because he's no longer working with the NXT talent and in their little world. He's now working with a former WWE champion and a main eventer at WrestleMania and the dude who beat up John Cena.
Yeah, and look at the fact that when they coming off of Blood Money 5, Ciampa got a match with a man that has been in the WWE for 15 years in The Miz, who's been a multiple time champion, has taken his career where people were like, oh, he's not going to amount to anything. And Miz is one of the most recognizable faces in the WWE history.
Oh, God. I mean, and you and I have discussed this. Miz, if you would have told me between John Morrison and The Miz, who would be the one to still be around WWE today without a break, I would have said Morrison. I mean, Morrison had a series of matches with Rey Mysterio Jr. in 2009.
Yeah.
That were unbelievable and made Morrison look like he should be in the main event of WrestleMania. For whatever reason, it never happened. 2 years later, The Miz is in the main event of WrestleMania. The Miz is wrestling The Rock at Madison Square Garden. The Miz put himself there by constantly working hard and perfecting his craft to the point where, one can argue who put Daniel Bryan on the map. Was it Daniel Bryan who put him on the map, or was it Daniel Bryan kicking the shit out of The Miz because we didn't like or respect of The Miz? I mean, give credit where credit is due. And now The Miz is giving that rub to the NXT kids, the guys that are trying so hard to get recognition and get ratings, because there has to be this idea within Raw and SmackDown talent where if we are the segment that beats another segment on another network wrestling show, then hey, my stock might go up a little bit.
Yeah.
You have to remember there are guys like Mark Henry and Shawn Michaels and Triple H who are probably probably have told stories, and these kids have heard it, of, I was in the most watched segment against Nitro on this date because we did this. Okay, well, wouldn't you want to be Tommaso Ciampa going up against, in the first segment, Chris Jericho and an interview segment, knowing that, or Cody Rhodes in a match, or Moxley in a match? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I would totally want to be Matt Riddle, the King of Bros, proving that you're the King of Bros by your segment and match, beating something that, Nick and Matt Jackson are doing on their show. I totally want that feather in my cap. That way you could tweet about it and then get, 57,000 retweets.
And what's funny is I think the brand newness of AEW is starting to wear a little bit, because since AEW has debuted, the difference in viewers between the two shows has slowly been decreasing, and it was only like 9,000 last week, like ratings wise, between the two shows. Like AEW only had like 9,000, was only like 9,000 higher than what NXT was, which means okay, either people that were like, hey, I'm going to watch it. People are like, hey, you know what? I can watch NXT, but I can watch NXT on the network too, watching AEW. But now that WWE's kind of snapped into the air, it's like, hey, look at what we're doing at NXT. People are now doing the lovely, hey, we're going to flip back and forth thing.
Which is what the Monday Night War was about anyway. And now it just happens to be happening on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And, you know, my earlier statements a few podcasts ago where I said I really don't think this is gearing up to be a war, you know, I may be wrong about those because WWE is now throwing their main roster, at least during the Survivor Series buildup, is throwing their main talent from Raw and SmackDown at NXT, which of course is going to give a bump. You know, when you do an internet video where you've got the Undisputed Era getting the ever holy shit knocked out of them by the OC in the back of, you know, Full Sail Arena, it's like, that's some NWO stuff, and I'll tune in to see some NWO stuff. You know, I'll tune in to see that familiar freshness, if you know what I mean. And, you know, not for nothing, both are putting on really great products. I mean, it's hard to say right now who's really winning. I mean, yes, you could, you know, base this on the ratings and the numbers and all that. But really, there were episodes of Nitro that won versus Raw, and Raw clearly had a better story going on. Like, I'm sorry, I hate to say it. Do take into consideration the night that Vince McMahon was shoved on his ass by Bret Hart after Bret Hart lost the steel cage match going, you know, which could have given him the belt going into WrestleMania 13. That lost to a Nitro episode that was probably heavily filled by the NWO.
Yeah.
And it was probably the same shit that we were used to in early 1997. Okay? That goes to show you just because a moment is overshadowed by the ratings doesn't mean necessarily that the ratings were right. In this instance, I do think they're still jockeying for position. I don't think we'll have an 83 weeks event ever happen again. But I do see, you know, like 6 or 7 weeks go here, 5 or 6 weeks go here. It all depends on the talent and how you use them. And I mean, if you have promos like Cody Rhodes cut last week, then you better have someone on NXT willing to cut that same intensity of a promo.
Yeah, or have something that's going to attract viewers, aka what the hell is going on with Finn Balor.
Exactly, which I think that might be their hook, so to speak. You know, hooking people in with the mystique of what side is Finn Balor on? Who is Finn Balor really going against? Much like Sting in 96 and 97 for WCW, which, hey, if they're pulling the Sting gimmick, then just have Sting come back and face him. You know, do a face-off with Sting. Fuck it, that dude would be awesome to see.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're going to take a small break here, come back because, as we said, moments make everything. And boy, there were some moments over the weekend and over the last couple of days that wrestling fans are talking about still and probably will be talking about for a while. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Pat G from the Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast. And no, we're not talking pro wrestling today, but we are talking sports hoodies, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, soccer, and much more. And this is brought to you by houseofhoodies.com, a new sponsor here at the TTRP. You can visit thehouseofhoodies.com and pick up your favorite team's merchandise. They have current players, former players, or you can customize your own hoodie, whether it be the NBA, NHL, MLB, and the NFL. After you're done shopping, use the promo code TTR Podcast and you will get 15% off your order. That's TTR Podcast for 15% off at thehouseofhoodies.com. we're back here, TTRP, Pat G, Dan Fury, talking everything. And as we were talking about the ratings and moments and everything, this past Saturday, All Elite Wrestling, AEW, had their first pay-per-view event, Full Gear, as AEW, mind you. And holy mother of God, what a show.
You know, they talk about moments. You know, like pro wrestling is a lot of moments, and you know, you don't remember the matches. This is going to be one of those where both things happen, because I don't think anyone will ever forget where they were when they saw a Japanese death match take place in the United States, let alone the level of brutality.
Yes.
I don't think people expected what they got out of the tag team division that night, and there was one huge surprise, which, you know, we'll talk about in a minute. I mean, let's just talk about legends being legends for 5 seconds. And then Cody Rhodes and Chris Jericho having one hell of a championship match, and just keeping these stories growing. And to be honest, this continues to solidify AEW as a brand that is going to expand and is going to keep providing top content for its fans.
Oh, absolutely. And moments of this on the show were in plenty, and of course that one of them started off with the triple threat tag team match for the tag team championships, and that match was amazing as it was, but it saw the return of the fallen angel Christopher Daniels.
You know, oh my God,
like, it wasn't Christopher Daniels, like, it was the fallen angel Christopher Daniels, because he had the paint on his face.
SCU, SoCal Uncensored. My God, you know, collectively, between he and Kazarian, they probably have, 40 years of wrestling experience under their belt?
Yeah, easily.
40 years of wrestling experience.
Yeah.
They have performed all over the world. They have performed on network television on prime time. They know what it takes to draw eyes, and they, I believe, much like, you know, the Young Bucks, want to prove that you can make tag team wrestling exciting. Them, LAX, the Young Bucks, I mean,
Lucha Brothers.
I mean, Luchasaurus is off the shelf.
Yeah.
He's back in the game.
Yeah, the Jurassic Express, man.
You have the Dark Order. You have so much, and these guys came out swinging, and they provided one hell of a match. But they also provided fans with the realization that it's, once again, that thing I talked about earlier: familiar freshness. Okay, wrestling fans know the Fallen Angel.
Yep.
Okay. They know the gimmick. They remember the gimmick. I mean, 10 years ago, we saw that gimmick on
Spike TV.
On Spike TV. You know, 10 years ago, we saw that gimmick. Now it's refreshed, and it's brand new, and it's with a new company, and he's got 10 more years of experience on how to work a camera and work a crowd. God damn, did they work that crowd.
Oh, yes, they did. Absolutely, they did. And what was great about this show is it had everything. It had wrestling. It had, like, technical prowess. It had that old school, like, Southern vibe or whatever. And then it had straight up unnatural, unadulterated brutality in a match between someone that made his name in that kind of area in Jon Moxley, and then a man who at one point was one of the greatest wrestlers in the world in Kenny Omega, and still is. And Omega showed everybody that, yes, Omega can wrestle a match, but Omega can also take it to another level with brutality.
Kenny Omega proved once again why he is deservedly to be talked about in the top 3 pro wrestlers on the planet today. And not very far from number 1. The reason why I say that is that Kenny Omega can go out there and he can have a 45-minute to 1 hour classic match. Matt Classic, right?
Yep.
And it can be intense chain wrestling, technical, hard hitting, and he can tell a story and keep you invested for an hour. And then he can do something that, for God's sakes, was 35 minutes of one of the most brutal matches, a splatterfest, a barbed wire ballad of brutality. Like, what he and Moxley did was took a CZW match, an IWA Japan match, and they put it on a pay-per-view for a major wrestling company in the United States and said, here you go. This is Moxley at his best, and this is Kenny Omega, who's never been in this type of environment, trying to keep up. And it was an evolution of his character, and it was the de-evolution of the Dean Ambrose character back to being Mox.
Oh, absolutely. And what was funny is as this match is going on and everything, like, I'm not watching it because I was at work, but as this match is going on, John Moxley's wife, Renee Young, who of course works for Fox Sports or whatever, and is a correspondent for WWE, her tweeting out during this match was hilarious. Because it was like, it started as like pure optimistic, and then just gradually got to, at the end of the night, the what the fuck.
Yeah. So let's talk about hardcore wrestling, because I know there's a lot of people that call it garbage wrestling. They call it trash wrestling. You know, there are a lot of people that look down on hardcore, and are like, there's no point. It's just, blood and thumbtacks. Okay. Being someone who is done hardcore, and being someone who has put himself in predicaments in matches where at the end you're like, why did I do that? When done properly, hardcore wrestling can do the same as a lucha libre match, or as a technical match, or as a spot fest, whatever. What you do is you take the audience on a ride. And what those guys did was they built the crowd with every weapon. It raised the bar. It kept raising and raising until finally we got to a moment that I never thought I'd see on American professional wrestling, where they had the classic bed of barbed wire. And I'm not talking about the Mick Foley 2006 tightly wrapped barbed wire that, we saw at SummerSlam or even ECW One Night Stand 2006. I'm talking about the crisscross barbed wire mattress, essentially, and the framed out thing.
Yeah.
Dude, there is nothing on heaven and earth that would get me to do that spot, but clearly it was needed for this, because this was a match that was supposed to take place at Double or Nothing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Double or Nothing. Yeah, Double or Nothing, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it was Double or Nothing.
All Out. No, it was All Out.
Oh, yeah, All Out, but Moxley had the staph infection.
Yes, and then it was supposed to happen at All Out, but the build started at Double or Nothing at the MGM Grand, and just has been building and festering in promos and on YouTube videos and in tweets. And then finally we get this, they didn't even have like a precursor match. They didn't even have like
nope.
We're build to this. They were just like, they let their words over a 6-month period build to this. And you would have thought they would have bounced that check, but fuck. There's my swear word for the night, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I could say.
Yeah. It was like after, and what was funny is I watched the match in its entirety Sunday afternoon, whatever. And I was just like, I need a day or two to just digest all of this. Because it was an amazing match, but it was like you needed like 24 hours just to go to like handle all of it.
It reminds me of, and I know this is going to be funny, my introduction to IWA and Japan and all that stuff was through the classic Insane Clown Posse Stranglemania VHSs. Which when you talk about those, it kind of makes you laugh, like with nostalgia, like holy shit. But like obviously watching those barbed wire exploding C4 barbed wire rope matches and stuff, you think to yourself, with the exception of like ECW, you're never going to get that level of brutality in America, especially when WWE really forced the industry to go PG.
Yeah, especially with the anytime someone bleeds, refs got the gloves on, like all that stuff.
Exactly. You kind of thought, okay, we're never going to see anything like that ever again. And I know PWI tweeted out that match set pro wrestling back 20 years. Isn't that kind of the point, dipshits? Like, everyone talks about this bygone era of professional wrestling known as the Attitude Era. I mean, this is the same era that saw hardcore wrestling on a nightly basis.
Yep. Hell, hardcore wrestling was on cable television.
Exactly. Trust me, hair and cable, 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays, bitch. But like, the one thing that really gets me is people talk about this bygone era of pro wrestling and they wish they would go back to it. John Moxley just took CZW and IWA and poured it down your throats, and he used Kenny Omega as the vessel in which to take it to that level because, to be honest, if you would have had Joey Janela in that kind of a match, it just would have been another hardcore match.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's the thing of you get the Moxley Janela match that had all the thumbtacks and everything.
Yes.
But like this match was, you needed Kenny Omega because to everybody that's a wrestling fan, Kenny Omega is a wrestler. He's not a hardcore guy. He's not brutal. Like, yeah, he can use weapons and stuff, as we've seen with his matches against Jericho. But to take it to that level of brutality, Kenny Omega just doesn't do it.
And I will throw heavy praise. So, ladies and gentlemen, get ready for this one. I will compare the Madison Square Garden, New York street fight at Royal Rumble 2000 between Cactus Jack and Triple H to the match that we saw with Kenny Omega and John Moxley. And the reason why is Triple H was known as a finesse guy and was starting to become that brawler character that we would eventually know very well over the next 20 years. He was starting to become that character.
Yep.
He wasn't there yet. Then introduce Cactus Jack, who he'd already had run-ins with in '97, but it wasn't the Cactus Jack that we loved. Cactus Jack on his way out the door was getting pedigreed twice into thumbtacks and barbed wire 2x4s and broken pallets and
Cactus Jack on his way out was doing everything under his power to make Triple H.
Yeah, and Triple H barely survived that match, okay? Now, you look at what happened with Kenny Omega and Moxley, although the hardcore guy won, who really won? Because now I look at Kenny Omega as someone who will fight in broken glass and thumbtacks to make sure that he's the guy that wins. Moxley took him to a level where now there's even more of an edge on Kenny Omega than there was before. If the Jericho matches in Japan really helped show that he could brawl for 45 minutes and have a wrestling match, this showed that he could definitely hold up against anyone of any style, because in the last 2 years, he's wrestled Jericho, Okada, and Moxley all on the big stage.
In 3 different types of matches. It's kind of hard not to argue that Kenny Omega isn't at least top 3 in the world. Absolutely. But that's going to move us to the other surprise that a lot of people are talking about, and that is the return of the best in the world to WWE television, so to speak. As last night on Fox Sports 1, the man known as CM Punk returned. And
all was right with the professional wrestling world.
Yes, all was right with the professional wrestling world. People lost their collective shit last night. They lost their collective shit this morning, and everything. And on a side note, holy mother of God, abs Finn Balor.
Yes. Oh God, Finn Balor has beautiful abs. Let's just be honest.
He doesn't have a 6-pack. He has like a 12-pack going on right now.
He reminds me of Bruce Lee. Like that's how compact he is. Okay, but now that we've sidebarred away from abs,
yes,
to now, CM Punk was always polarizing. I will now argue that he has become even more polarizing with just one 30-second snippet.
Yep.
On FS1, because so let's set this up. Okay, in 2014, CM Punk walks out. Okay,
yep.
Walks out, gets fired, gets a FedEx on his wedding. Depends on what you want to believe. What side of the story? Goes on Cole Cabana's podcast and drops the pipe bomb of pipe bombs.
A two-parter.
A two-parter, so good they had to do 2 parts and a lawsuit.
Yep.
Okay. A lawsuit in which he won. Go figure.
And then another lawsuit between the former friends.
Yeah, and then a lawsuit right there. Okay, CM Punk has his ill-fated trip into the UFC. Give him credit. Dude had balls to even step in there. It's not ballet. And then what happened?
He held his own. He held his own for the best he could.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. He tried. Okay?
Yeah,
at least he tried. How many of you would get in the ring or the octagon? You fucks. Anyway, there were and have been a lot of people who were like, "Oh, he was on StarCast. He's going to show up at AEW. Oh, we want CM Punk at AEW. Oh, did you know they got a hold of him for All In last year? Oh, it'd be so cool to see him show up."
Yeah.
And then he shows up on WWE television, Fox television, on a show that talks about WWE. And all of a sudden people are like, fucking Solo. Guys, a year ago, you would have done just about anything for CM Punk to come back.
Mm-hmm.
CM Punk just came back. I don't know how many times I saw Shane McMahon call himself the best in the world over the last year, and every single person said it themselves. One of these times, he's going to be being announced as the best in the world, and CM Punk's music is going to hit, and the roof is going to explode, and all is going to be right with wrestling. Hey, he's not wrestling right now, but it's at least a start in the right direction.
And for everybody out there, listen to my words. This is not a WWE contract. CM Punk, a.k.a. Phil Brooks, is signed by Fox Sports.
Mm-hmm.
Not the WWE. He is signed by Fox Sports to be a correspondent. He's not going to be on every week, but it's a slow start.
I mean, you have to remember, this isn't the first time that a WWE talent that has had issues with the company has returned. Okay. And really, he's not with the company. Like, once again, this must be stated. He is a Fox Sports analyst, which is, I guess, our loophole to be able to say it. But his name is now appearing trending on WWE. Okay. His matches, his viewership has gone up on the network. Fans are rightfully so. CM Punk, for the better part of 3 years, was the face of the company. I mean, you have to remember, from the moment the pipe bomb dropped in June of 2011 until he left in January of 2014, CM Punk was everywhere. He was on the hats, the cups, the posters, the movies, the forks, the knives, everything shy of a goddamned ice cream bar. The only way we got that was a t-shirt. I mean, yeah. CM Punk became, for 3 years, someone that we wanted to see. And if what we get out of CM Punk, at least on a bi-weekly basis, is an appearance to talk about the current product, great. Maybe that will get interest again in CM Punk performing in the ring, if only for a couple matches. I mean, he's not that old. I mean, he could definitely do some great work with maybe an Adam Cole or an AJ Styles. I mean, Seth Rollins has already said, "Fight me, CM Punk," in a tweet. I mean, so we know Seth Rollins would get off on the fact of working with CM Punk because, they want that match. There's tons of other matches that would be dream matches for CM Punk. But this is also a guy who, to the best of our knowledge, hasn't done any kind of bumping or ring work in the better part of 5 years, other than UFC training.
Yeah, and not to mention, Bray Wyatt sent out a tweet of pictures when CM Punk was leader of the Nexus and Bray Wyatt was the Husky Harris character. It's like, yo, like, people saw that and were like, yo, the Fiend never forgets.
No, he doesn't. And in fact, if you go back and you watch and you put things together with what they're doing with this Fiend story, and, you could say that it's kind of nonsensical and it really doesn't have any rhyme or reason. Okay, so he got rid of the Demon Kane, who was his first feud in WWE. Okay. He beat Seth Rollins, who, remember the night the Shield and the Wyatt family faced off? Yeah, that was a huge night. Fiend never forgets. Finn Balor? Yeah. Fiend kind of got his ass kicked a lot by Finn Balor a couple years ago. Just throwing that out there. And you're absolutely right. The Fiend doesn't forget, because Husky Harris has been kind of a black mark on Bray Wyatt. Clearly, he created a character, a puppet, a pig puppet, on his show to kind of poke fun at the Husky Harris character that was thrust upon him by creative. So, wouldn't it be cool to have CM Punk versus The Fiend? Let's hope he would at least not no-sell the GTS 18 times.
One could hope.
One could hope. I mean, what do you think? Like, are you excited as a fan to see Punk back?
I'm excited. I'm excited to see Punk back because CM Punk is one of those men that has always been a fan of professional wrestling, and he has a deep knowledge of professional wrestling. And you could even go on the WWE Network and watch the DVD that they made, and how when he was in OVW, he would like have his matches, but then he'd be there late with Paul Heyman learning how to do production and stuff like that. That man was just a sponge for everything pro wrestling. And now for him to be a correspondent, so to speak, for Fox Sports on WWE, that's amazing. Like, because now it gives him a chance to talk pro wrestling, talk about a company that he knows in WWE, and people that he's friends with.
I mean, do you honestly think that, and this is just speculation on my part, do you think he's kept up with the product, or do you think that this is him coming back in and he's going to have to relearn all of this? Because Punk, to me, although he said, I was done, I want nothing to do with wrestling, yada, yada, I think he still had to have kept up on the business. He would have had to have known that Samoa Joe was, he's jokingly poked at Samoa Joe's tweets about certain aspects of WWE production. I mean, he has to have at least kept up on the stuff. Or do you think it's one of those deals where he's just like, yeah, screw it all. Like, I want nothing to do with this. And he comes back and it's just like, okay, I'm going to have to relearn this stuff.
You know what? I think it might be a mix. I think it might be a mix. Because the WWE product is so different from when CM Punk was part of WWE to how it is now. I think it might be a mix. I think he's kept up on wrestling as far as like his close personal friends, the Samoa Joes, the Daniel Bryans, stuff like that. But like he might have to reteach himself stuff as far as like NXT and the main WWE product and everything.
I mean, he strikes me as a kind of person who, when he's away, he's away.
Yeah.
When he's coming back into it, he's going to go full bore. Like, I don't see him taking this position with Fox Sports and taking their money and half-assing this.
Oh.
I don't see him half-assing this job. I see him taking it absolutely serious.
Absolutely. And that's funny. I look up at this screen as they're going into the next match for NXT, and Bronson Reed comes out and he's going up the steps and does his little foot stomp, and there's two guys sitting right ringside with the original CM Punk shirts on.
Oh my god.
The black thing with the fist and everything, the t-shirt that I own somewhere in my house.
This is what fans wanted. This is exactly what we wanted. This is what we chanted for all these years. Like, every time Kenta teased a go to sleep, you got a CM Punk chant.
Yep.
Like, this is what fans wanted for all these years. Well, now, at least in some aspect, we're getting it.
In a way, you got it, and I'm curious as to. And this is the thing is I watch the WWE backstage because, one, I love Renee Young. I've always loved Renee Young, and the ability to have the career that she's had, coming from the backstage interviewer to being on commentary to now being a host of a show on Fox Sports. It's like she's in her element, and you also got to remember that. She has that Renee Young was friends with CM Punk's wife, as was Paige. And Paige is one of the mainstays on the WWE backstage. And
she looks great, by the way. Like, I'm sorry. She looked phenomenal last night in that interview segment. You're right. And that leads to another thing. So when this Divas evolution really took off, there was kind of one diva or one white female that was omitted.
Yep.
From the equation.
Yep.
Just gonna say it. If a CM Punk return is possible, then I believe an AJ Lee return is possible too.
Absolutely.
AJ Lee was basically glossed over during all of the Divas Revolution documentaries.
Yep, and not to mention she was glossed over when Caitlyn returned to the Mae Young Classic.
Yeah, she has been purposefully forgotten in the lore of WWE. When you look at what her contribution was to WWE, she was really the fire starter as far as women having wrestling matches.
Her and Paige.
her and Paige, well, really Paige came up from the NXT developmental, and you're right, those two really were like, okay, we're having wrestling matches. But, AJ really tried to have wrestling matches with the models that they had at the time.
Oh, God.
It may not have always worked, but she tried her hardest to get some amount of athleticism out of them.
Yeah.
And then what did she get for her troubles? She lost the belt to, Nikki, who eventually lost it to Charlotte.
Yeah, and then on top of it, they had Nikki Bella run with the title to break AJ Lee's record of longest reigning longest reigning women's champion.
And to me, it was like, okay, we're going to purposely forget you. And even in the Divas Evolution documentary that they did, they showed like a 1 second snippet.
Yeah.
AJ.
Yep.
It's like, guys, that woman carried the women's division on her shoulders
for a time where no one, and this was before you had the horsewomen show up, because they were all still NXT developing and everything. AJ was your focal point.
Yeah. And imagine what you could get out of AJ Lee against any one of the horsewomen now if she were to come back. Like, it would be one of those things where, like, I could even see, and I mean, this is the farthest from possible that you're going to get. But I always wondered what would happen if Triple H and Stephanie went against CM Punk and his wife, AJ, at Mania.
Yeah.
Because, like, they kind of teased it where Stephanie and AJ had a promo one time. Yep. And I was like, are they going to have a match? Like, that would be kind of cool to see. And then, of course, there was always the animosity with Punk, and it's like, oh, my God, that would be a tag team match I'd pay to see. Oh, that has to be at a Mania. And then Punk disappears.
Yeah.
Then Punk disappears.
And then we get Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle.
Yes, which was still, I mean, Rousey was still amazing.
Still amazing, but not the match that people wanted. They wanted Rousey and The Rock, but unfortunately, Rock's movie career.
Hey, I mean, the dude makes money. He's going to be your president someday. Get over it.
Yeah, pretty much. But we're going to finish this up with a story that's kind of has been focused on, but then not focused on. And that is the story of one Jordan Miles, a.k.a. known as ACH from the Independence and his ROH days, and the T-shirt that was created for him. WWE created a T-shirt for Jordan Miles, who they were building him up through the little tournament they had on NXT television and everything. And unfortunately, the T-shirt that they created had the Jordan Miles in there, and it was in white but surrounded by like a red, and it looked like a smile. And Jordan Miles tweeted out that this was racially insensitive. It was a remembrance to the old days of minstrel blackface.
Yes. I have looked. You can't not notice this T-shirt because it's been all over Twitter. Wrestling websites have reported on it. And as of today, he has announced that he has quit because he can't work for, quote, fucking racists. I can completely see, looking at it, where it is the stereotypical, how can I... okay, so the characteristics of blackface were, obviously white actors painting themselves up in blackface paint. Yep. With big red lips, over exaggerated lips, and big white teeth, just like the whitest of white teeth. Yes. And that's all you saw of the actor. Okay.
And this was done in the era of like silent movies and musicals back in like the 1920s and stuff like that.
Musical theater and such, because black actors were not allowed to perform. Yep. Racist. And now he is accusing WWE of basically doing that with the T-shirt, and that it was nothing but a large set of gums or teeth with his name in it on a black T-shirt. Yeah, I think they could have come up with a better logo. Like, if that's the best, I mean, if there's an entire floor dedicated to these guys, like, and making logos
and research and development and whatnot,
could you have come up with something better than a smile? That yeah, I think they could have. I mean, this one was just one of those where you look at it and you're like, who thought this was a first off, it was an ugly freaking design to me.
Yeah, it very much was.
I wouldn't have known what this was. I would have thought a pair of teeth, obviously. Like, that's kind of what you look, if you kind of make your eyes go fuzzy, that's what it looked like. But I wouldn't have known who this person was. I would have thought, what is it? It just kind of looks like a wedge with a name in it. And then when you start peeling back the layers, it's like, it makes no sense from a marketing standpoint. And then you look at it from the racial implications, and you're just like, really a bad idea.
Yeah.
Really bad idea.
Terrible idea. And I'm not saying that it was the reaction was wrong. The reaction was absolutely right. But ACH has taken a lot of flack because of the way he reacted. Jumping right to social media and all that. And a lot of people and a lot of African American wrestlers have commented on this. Booker T, Mark Henry, among others. And ACH has kind of apologized about the way that he went about it. Because his first video where he dropped the F-bomb like 20 times, he did apologize for it because it was just fueled by rage and anger. He did have another interview where he explained why he quit WWE and all that. But it's just one of the things of in the world that we live today, man, you put something on social media, it's there. It gets blown up quick.
Yeah, not only does it get blown up quick, but I mean, dude, you can, and this is one of the things about social media that I tell people about. You put something out there, okay, you tweet something, you put a Facebook post, and that's it. Like, it's out there. And all it takes is someone to screenshot just a snippet. I mean, CM Punk, a few months back when Undertaker and Roman Reigns, CM Punk, just bringing him in as an example, versus Drew McIntyre and Shane O'Mac.
Yeah.
Right? He made a comment about Shane O'Mac after the chokeslam and instantly deleted it, but not before someone screenshotted it.
Yep.
Like, he posted it, he deleted it a minute later, but in that 60 seconds, that was not only screenshotted, retweeted, picked up by people who instantly ran with it that CM Punk is commenting on WWE wrestling again. Oh, that's it. And I mean, and what's even worse is it's like, you are an entertainer first and foremost. So anything you put out there, if you're angry, put the phone down.
Yeah.
Rule number one, if you're angry, put the phone down, because your initial reaction is not going to be good. And your initial reaction, 9 times out of 10, not going to be the right one. You need to calm yourself. What he should have done, and I'm not telling him he shouldn't have been angry. Hell no, I would have been angry. That's some racist ass shit that was on that T-shirt.
Yeah.
But you're going to put the company, a multi-billion-dollar company, on blast on Twitter. It's like if he was looking for social media and, big media to pick up on that, it didn't work. Yeah, it did to a certain extent, but not to what he wanted.
No.
And, I mean, to me, yeah, I mean, they didn't listen to you. You don't, he chose his convictions and is now not part of the company anymore. maybe the company will think twice when doing merchandise for people. Just saying.
Yeah, it's one of them things of two wrongs don't make a right. But in this sense, the WWE is probably going to look at that and go, okay, maybe when we create designs for people, we might want to be like, hey, this is what we created for you. What do you think? AKA like a lot of graphic designers out there do when they make logos for people.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the funny things is it's like, you always hear that they're very much, working with talent. That didn't seem to come through on this one.
No, not at all. Not at all. And unfortunately, I do feel bad for ACH because it did seem like they were going to build him up towards something, because I believe they had him win that New Blood tournament or whatever it was. And they were using him on TV, and then this happened, and he kind of shot himself in the foot. And what's bad is, yes, you're no longer part of WWE, but now other wrestling companies out there see what you did and go, okay, well, what happens if he doesn't like something else? Is he going to go on Twitter automatically and blast people?
Yeah, I mean, there's a double-edged sword to having the power of the planet, which you do. When you're on social media, you have the power of communicating to the entire planet. Those 120 characters, they can shoot you in the foot.
They absolutely can. And we've seen that more times than not as far as professional wrestling goes, whether it be the main stage of WWE or the independent stage of just regular independent wrestlers.
Yeah, I mean, in recent times, there have been wrestlers who've come out and been extremely transphobic, especially with the current climate of the women's division in AEW. And you're like, wow, this dude is kind of a dick. And you're like, wow, that's not what I thought of this person. Well, this guy can fuck off. And, people's political views, you find out on social media that this is how they feel, and then next thing you know, that entertainer or that wrestler is no longer booked under certain circumstances because of their ideas and how they relay them out to the planet.
Absolutely.
Man,
and
words are dangerous.
Yeah, and then even worse, the stories that have come out about various independent wrestlers with talking to underage people.
Yeah, I mean, you've had that come out. I mean, you've had wrestlers, unfortunately, in their lives, just they try and make a comment, and they say, "Oh, it's me as my character," and then it's extremely racist or anti-Semitic, and it comes out, and you might say, "Oh, that's my character." Well, that's your personal. That's your private.
That's your personal. That it says your real name,
Yeah, it's a bad look. You can't exactly cover that one up. I mean, unless you know the person personally, and you're like, nah, that's not them. But then perception is reality.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and the way you present yourself in all aspects of your social media is kind of what people perceive you as. It's kind of hard to change their mind when you put out a tweet angry blasting the company you work for, whether it's justified or not, which to me, I think this one was justified.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't. It was completely justified, but for a person that's part of the WWE company, it was one of the things of people were like, okay, yeah, we know you're justified. We accept this, but you could have gone about this in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, it would be nice if something positive came out of this.
And you know what? I'm sure something positive will come out of it at the end, because there's still details and everything. But at the end of the day, ACH no longer with WWE, but I'm sure the WWE research and development merchandise team is going to look at this and go, okay, what can we do so this doesn't happen again?
Absolutely. I think that what they need to do is figure out a way to incorporate the personality of the performer, what they want this character to be, as well as having the performer be like, well, I had this idea for my logo. Well, can we see some mock-ups of it? And then just go with it. If it works and the t-shirt sells, hell, you were just involved in a really cool graphic arts design for this performer who is now making money, and therefore your company is making money. Therefore, everyone is making money.
Exactly. And unfortunately, with WWE, that's what it's all about. It's all about the money. So,
I mean, can't complain.
But that's going to do it for us here on the TTRP. Thank you for listening once again. Please visit gearnetwork.com. Click on the links for all the sponsors, all the other content the Gear Network has. For Dan Fury, I'm Pat G. We will catch you on the flip side. The Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast is brought to you by Gear Network and ShopGear.com. We can be listened to via Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else you can get your podcasts. The TTRP introduction was done by Trevor Dugan. The show is hosted by Patrick Gancheski and Daniel Roberts. Post-production of the TTRP is done by Patrick Gancheski and John Cimino. If you'd like to follow us via social media, you can search Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast on Facebook. You can follow us at Twitter by using the name Turnbuckle_talk. Or if you have questions or concerns, you can reach us via email at turnbuckletlkradio@gmail.com. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast, downloading our episodes, following us on social media, and interacting with us.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.